One of the most well thought out episodes in Bluey consists of three prominent characters, the restless stream, Bluey, and her mother, Chilli. This episode tells a marvelous story, with little to no dialogue, revolving around the restless joy yet rough relationships between parents and children by using a central symbol of constructing a dam. If you have not watched this episode yet, I highly recommend that you do so before diving into this analysis. This analysis will be divided into two sections. Section 1 will be an analysis of the episode's plot and characters. The next and final section will be an analysis on the two kinds of music used in this episode, additionally with an analysis on the rendition made by Jazz Darcy. Being centered around constructing a dam and a penetrative stream trying to get around and through it, Bluey's reign serves as an interpretive commentary on conventional parenting and a child's unconventional self-expression by connecting the psychological truth under self-determination's autonomy, connection, and competence to foster creativity with the nostalgic unification between the two foils Bluey and Chilli. My acknowledgements for the person who inspired me to write this analysis goes to Pugly, paving me the path to research, analyze, and finally craft this piece. He creates astounding and insightful Bluey analyses, which are worth the watch. His channel link will be in the description below. Furthermore, the literature which helps supports my interpretations on such parts will both have in-text citations and be in the description below under my source references, if you want to further read some of the literature. Also, with this episode being vague in its meaning, it brings many fruitful interpretations, whether that be parenting philosophies, existentialism, or psychological realities, to the table. I would love to see your interpretations of this episode in the comments below. Furthermore, if I made any mistakes on certain things or misinterpretations within this analysis, please let me know. I love to see what I could do better or to clarify on. After Bingo and Bandit depart from their Queenslander home, we are left with both Bluey and Chilli as the two of three prominent characters of the episode. Subsequently, it immediately starts thunderstorming, and both characters react quickly to do their own thing. Usually, thunderstorms are associated psychologically in literature as a reflectance of a character's grief, sorrow, or anxiety, in which this case it does show the psychological anxiety within Chilli with her daughter, but this episode also turns this norm upside down by Bluey jubilantly playing within the rain, juxtaposing Chilli. Such character foil between the two will ultimately build up in the episode with the parallel tensions seen between the conventional and unconventional use of items. We see Bluey carelessly playing in the rain with her tongue out catching the triplets, while Chilli, in a hurrying manner, retrieves the drying clothes on the clothesline back inside to prevent them from getting wet. Already, we see the foil between the characters. Bluey echoes a prominent motif seen in the show, that being the child's innocence and living boldly in the pretend, their sensorial adaptation to the world. Furthermore, Rain reinforces at the start that children have unformed boundaries, which is seen through the natural tendency of being careless and creative through their actions. As we get older, we develop more experiences, knowledge, and a deeper comprehension of consequences. Adults have developed their decision-making skills, and we see this through Chilli, unlike seen through Bluey. With this contrast, we can find Bluey to be a relatable way to reminisce on our liberated childhoods, but as adults relate to Chilli as a means of order and encumbrance of being an adult. We then see our other character, the stream, get introduced by streaming down from the gutter, out of the downspout, then finally onto the cobbled pathway. Additionally, the stream also serves to be an antagonistic symbol, which the dam symbolizes Bluey's creativity and the imaginative innocence of childhood by which the stream tries to penetrate through it. If an actual dam was penetrated by water, it may cause damage to an area like civilization or society. Applying this to Bluey's dam, such creative construction shows the vitality of parents encouraging imaginative play amongst children so that water doesn't destroy their emotional and social development of the world. Of course, not all dams are perfect. seen with the leakages within this episode, but rather it is a series of trial and error of constructing this dam. Parents should thereby encourage and help build this dam. This may be a stretch, but I believe this episode additionally explores the underlying psychological theory of self-determination amongst both children and adults. Self-determination theory argues, quote, the conditions supporting the individual's experience of autonomy, competence, and connection foster the most volitional and high-quality forms of motivation and engagement for activities, including creativity. Thus, Bluey fosters under the idea of self-determination her creativity with building the dam. Maybe the dam itself is her self-determination needs, autonomy, competence, relatedness, which a child develops to become an adult over time. Bluey indirectly conveys this coming of age, and simultaneously how to foster such coming of age, which adds depth and relatability to such a wonderful show. This is why I believe ages from being a kid to an adult loves this show, as well as the complexity of the characters themselves developing their sense of identity in the world. Bluey takes notice of the stream, proceeding to indulge herself by splashing in the water. By doing this, she gradually gets herself more wet and unkempt, but shows indifference to her appearance, showing its carefulness to depict that children's boundaries aren't necessarily formed yet. Brain emphasizes that Bluey is exploring, learning, and adapting to her environments, both in the physical and psychological world. Bluey then gets the idea to form a dam, to prevent the stream from coursing through the pathway. As I said earlier, the dam symbolizes the creativity and innocence of childhood, living boldly in the pretend. Initially, Bluey uses her feet and arms as a means of blocking the stream in vain. However, throughout this episode, we will see Bluey continuously building the dam in order to prevent the stream from coursing around and through it. Although the uses of such items in the construction of the dam may be unconventional, they are enriched with a child's psychological use of the item. She uses building blocks, a newspaper, and a toy house to create her dam, furthermore showing that despite the wrong use for these items, we see the creativity and symbolic play expressed through Bluey assembling the dam one by one. The importance of pretend and symbolic play, such as constructing a pretend dam, according to a fairly recent paper, quote, affords opportunities to engage in abstractions that could support abilities such as perspective taking, emotion recognition and regulation, and cooperation. Chilli calls for Bluey to retrieve an umbrella. Although an umbrella is used for protection and shelter against the rain, Bluey uses it as a means to block the stream from flowing onto the street past the pathway. As a catalyst for building the dam, the umbrella shows Bluey's heartful, playful, and boundaryless imagination taking over the rational or conventional use of such items. Furthermore, Chilli expresses annoyance at Bluey's misuse of the umbrella, showing the tension between Chilli's boundary parenting and Bluey's boundaryless imagination, as well as the initial indifference she has to Bluey's imaginative dam. Such tension additionally reflects the foibles of the characters in this episode. The umbrella fills up with the stream, being too much of a burden for Bluey to handle. She lets go of the umbrella. The stream courses through. In a way, this can be interpreted as a parallel to Bluey's burdening towards Chilli. Sometimes the burdening of parenting can overload their umbrella and might tumble over, but this should not conclude with giving up, but continuing in ways to help children construct their dam of self-determination to projectively constellate their autonomy, competence, and connections. This can additionally be in parallel to Bluey. Rather than giving up after the umbrella overbears her, she finds other ways to construct the dam, showing her sense of self-determination. Bluey then uses the newspaper as a means of building her dam. Rather than reading the paper literally, we can psychologically read the newspaper as another continuance of symbolic item use, showing how potent and boundaryless a child's imagination can be when it comes to creativity. Although the newspaper hinders the stream for longer, it ultimately knocks the newspaper down since it has zero support. Bluey holds the newspaper in place in order to prevent this from happening. Although the stream seeps through the end, the newspaper enlightens Bluey to continue constructing the dam of childhood, or self-determinance, or creativity. It's ultimately up to your interpretation. Without a care for being wet, Bluey then bursts into the house to find blocks to build her dam, a continuation of the freedom of childhood. She runs back out the door but is confronted by Chilli standing with her conventions and friends, contrasting the unconventional use of such materials behind Bluey's intentions by pointing out the wet mess Bluey had made with her indifference to her environment due to the adherence towards her dam. Chilli then comes out of the house and places down a towel, signaling to Bluey to try. Unbeknownst to Chilli, however, this enlightens Bluey to grab the towel in order to stabilize the blocks from being pushed by the streams. Chilli's indirectly, in a way, helping Bluey to construct this dam. But this recognition, or epiphanic moment, comes later to Chilli when Bluey is unable to fulfill the last part of her dam. The tension can be seen between the conventional versus the unconventional, with Bluey using her imagination rather than her conventions or rationale to dry herself from the soaking rain. The sense of unconventionalism is accentuated again when Chilli grabs yet another towel, taking that logical side of reasoning to drive Bluey from being soaked with the water. But Bluey intercepts her by grabbing the towel to stabilize the newspaper. We see Chilli building frustration with Bluey's actions thereafter. With the towel, she runs back to the walkway and places the towel behind the newspaper to avert the stream from coursing through it. However, the stream refuses to stop, similar to Bluey refusing to stop building her dam of creativity. Chilli finishes mopping Bluey's mess within the house, finally coming outside. She too has the same countenance as Bluey's to her dam's awry. Although both serve as foils to each other, they also share similarities when it comes to wanting to achieve something. The stream furthermore could serve as a basis of how relations can sometimes be restless turmoil, being as parallel between Chilli and Bluey throughout this episode. However, despite the stream penetrating through, Chilli has an epiphany such that constructing this dam is vital for Bluey to cognitively develop as a child regarding her autonomy, competence, and connection to foster her creativity. It is through Chilli's volition as a parent to nurture Bluey. Not wanting Bluey to make another miss, Chilli blocks the door with the mop and her body, while Bluey tries to get past her, finding an aperture. Bluey brute forces her way through Chilli, but Chilli holds her back. Although Chilli puts up a good fight, she is unable to hold on for long and lets go of Bluey. The tumble down is the moment we see virtually in all parents, like an archetype, that weight and anxiety that exhausts them. Exhausted by Bluey's shenanigans, Chilli lays on the chair in the veranda. We hear the sounds of the pouring rain and a tiring sigh from Chilli. The closest dialogue within this episode. What I appreciate about Bluey is its subtle change to something relaxing, like the sound of rain. Thank you, Dan Brum. The undertone, feeling exhausted but being relaxed, entices Chilli's epiphanic moment of Bluey's boundless imagination. We see the audience observe this as the shot changes behind Chilli over the shoulder, whereby Chilli stares at Bluey constructing her dam. This moment is beautiful for the reason that it shifts the episode to Chilli helping Bluey construct this dam. The shot changes to Bluey's side, depicting the porch Chilli is sitting on. Bluey's countenance is beaming with imagination and interest in constructing her dam, then switches back to Chilli and recognition with a smile, her epiphanic moment. Such a smile is worth thousands of words, as it is enriched in in-depth interpretation of such a wonderful recognition. Her smile, in my opinion, is the recognition of psychological truth of being a parent, but as well as her child, a universal interconnection between the two. That sometimes things can be roughly restless in relationships, but such a duality can be reconciled through the intimate parenting with not just the physical truth, but with the psychological truth under self-determination to foster creativity. Bluey then entrances herself to be part of the dam, but the stream keeps flowing to the left to pass the dam. Bluey looks sad. But just as when the stream was about to course through, Chilli intervenes using her paws, holding an umbrella to keep her from getting soaked. The importance of the rain, though seen as draining and tiresome weather, should be encouraging yourself to involve yourself with children. According to University of Connecticut, quote, strong emotional bonds to help children learn how to manage their own feelings and behaviors and self-confidence tied to the underlying self-determination theory of self-expression. As a means of importance to a child to develop their own self-expression, it inspires them to reflect on thoughts, life, actions, decisions, relationships, and many more complex notions which makes up an individual. This dam is fulfilled by Chilli, and I think this shows the importance and how self-determination theory is connected towards pretend play. Furthermore, Chilli finally connects the psychological truth of Bluey's childhood by helping her construct her pretend dam, with both living boldly in the pretend. The stream still courses to the left. Bluey has an expression, and leaves her mom the choice to either let go of the umbrella, her conventions, or to let the water pass through. Chilli sighs, but ultimately decides to let go of the umbrella, completing the dam wall from the left side of the walkway to the right. Both wag their tails in excitement. The rain and stream finally come to a halt. The stream slowly retreats. Although the rain stopped and as a result Bluey looks sad, Chilli cheers her up. The sun slowly makes its appearance through the bombardment of the clouds. Being excited, Bluey points to something off the shot, and Chilli pivots her body to the direction. Both are in awe when a full shot behind them shows a double rainbow. The double rainbow symbolizes not only a transformation, change, and growth amongst Chilli and Bluey, mother and daughter, but a close bond between the two. Being not black and white, rainbows are a complex spectrum of colors, echoing the complexity of life and familial relationships itself. Sometimes the complexity can be restlessly rough. Other times it can be intimate, sometimes sad, sometimes requires both separation and individuation. As a rainbow is miraculous to many eyes, life is too, despite hardships. Chilli is there for her daughter, seen with bringing Bluey in closer and wrapping her arm around her, wagging their tails. Bluey then proceeds to disassemble her dam, but Chilli insists her not to do so, leaving it there to not only emphasize the constancy, but also the permeation of childhood reconciled amongst both her and Bluey. When they proceed to walk back into the house, it starts to rain again. Rain pours down into the gutter out of the downspout onto the cobbled walkway. Both rush to complete the dam again. I feel like this suggests the idea of continuity, meaning that we should continue feeling the child's creativity. With the three prominent characters, the restless stream, Bluey, and Chilli, all foils to each other yet concord the end to connect the psychological truth, whether that be the cognitive development within children, being self-determined through expressing their autonomy, creativity, or competence, and or both, which constellate around psychological nature of a child's boundaryless imagination and the hardships of being a parent. We can now finally go to music, where I talk about the prominent pieces which were carefully composed as a means to concord with this episode, and with being in parallel to the characters, as well as Jazz Darcy's rendition of the first part of the music in this episode, which has lyrics that I do think connect well to what the episode hints at. Because of the lack of dialogue between Bluey and Chilli, the sounds of the episode are embellished by the rain and the music. They in fact define the episode itself, underlying the plot. Furthermore, we can see how the music defines itself by being usually in the background and sometimes in the foreground. Both songs contribute to telling the plots, parts culminating in some, relaxing in others, aspirational, or sometimes wondrous in others, constellating all together to create an emotional masterpiece that constitutes for the dialogue of the episode. I believe even without the plot itself, you can somewhat piece what the episode is about, only with the music. It paints a picture where we are able to interpret what the music is doing at this part or the other part. The episode furthermore consists of two pieces. One exists in the first half, and the other exists when the plot shifts, when Chilli sighs and looks at Bluey's dam. Both play a significant role in forming towards the shift, as well as playing the emotional role of unifying both Chilli and Bluey, same with the double rainbows. Rain first consists of this playful music, maybe for some even nostalgic. The time signature for the song is 3/4, triple meter, commonly associated with a waltz. Furthermore, a waltz is a stylistic dance commonly seen with two intimate people, where they usually dance on a circular pattern with their hands enclosed on each other as a very close and gentle gesture. This pattern symbolizes unity and coming together. I think this fits well in the episode between Chilli and Bluey, where despite the hullabaloo between their relationship, they are united at the end, and this shows the common, close relationships we see between parent and child. Furthermore, the waltz is characterized by its freedom of expression and passion, which this echoes Bluey building her dam, showing her expressions of competence, autonomy, and connection to foster her creativity, as well with Chilli uniting with her to help her express such affirmation components of self-determination at the end. Additionally, the melody ascends and descends in a playful major scale, seen commonly in lullabies or nursery rhymes like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or Mary Had a Little Lamb, which I think not only gives the song a cozy, playful, and happy feeling, but also something nostalgic for both teenagers and adults to reminisce their childhood on. First song has also been wonderfully covered by one of the music artists on Bluey, Jazz Darcy. Her cover initially establishes an intimate and nostalgic feeling, using a first-person perspective of racing boats, paper probably, and getting dirty in the mud, which the mother smilingly frowned at. Furthermore, it shows that feeling of, a quote, "we were living boldly in the pretend," the quality of children living in a boundaryless, innocent, and symbolic imagination. Her song suddenly shifts, however, when, quote, our shoes had outgrown, we were living life's games, and that we were running away from the rain, outquote. Having an idea in mind that we would still be the same and innocent, boundaryless child, and that we developed this sense of conventionalism. The outro finally shows the transformation from child to parent, where the parent involves themselves in the child's pretend play of boat racing. This echoed in the episode with Chilli, involving herself in constructing Bluey's dam. This cover furthermore shapes Joe Bum's prominent reason for creating Bluey as a, quote, celebration of the role of imaginative play has in shaping healthy kids, unquote, quote, being bully and the pretend. When a song revolves around the trajectory of being joyous, carefree, and playful, being emotionally resonating, it triggers nostalgic memories from us. The simple melody makes us yearn for a simplistic time in our childhood. From a psychological perspective, nostalgic is a complex emotion that gives rise to primarily the positive effect and serves to counteract sadness and loneliness. As we saw through Darcy's lyricism, nostalgia can be induced through a sentimental longing for the past, where we raced boats and turned our socks to brown from mud. It has been recorded by literature that nostalgia will not only successfully increase well-being to the extent that it increases psychological need for satisfaction, as well as positive effects, thoughts, and behaviors, but also, quote, demonstrated that nostalgia boosts social connectedness, unquote, which I think plays a lot in the idea that for some people, they can psychologically relate to Bluey by healing their inner child with having emotionally strong reminiscences of childhood. Let's get on to our next song. Buried between Bluey and Chilli, this piece creates a tear-jerking yet joyous feeling. The use of C-sharp major as the key signature allows the flexibility for the composers to create something harmonious between the relationship of Bluey and Chilli, child and parent. When I went into this comment section of a random video showcasing these tracks, I saw people describe the track as, quote, divine, unquote, and that it, quote, fills my heart with happiness, unquote. Both Joff Bush and Jazz Darcy have a really nice strength in their production when it comes to creating very emotional and attachable music. You can see this through episodes like Sleepytime. The original piece was composed by Host, but it was remixed, and Curry Swap, both at the end. For me, this piece embellishes a great amount of aspiration. Furthermore, I feel like it has the quality of strength and power encompassing it. A psychology literature I read concerning the emotional expression of tears of joy and finding life's meaning was that the experiments found a correlation that the, quote, function of, unquote, expressing tears of joy could lead to direct people at a higher level of well-being, quote, by pointing them to the types of experiences that make their lives meaningful, unquote. Like the previous song, I feel like this song heals the audience, yet in an emotional rendition masterfully created by both Bush and Darcy. Bluey's Reign serves as an interpretive commentary on conventional parenting and a child's unconventional self-expression by connecting the psychological truth under self-determination's autonomy, competence, and connection, which fosters creativity, with the nostalgic unification between two foils, Bluey and Chilli, parent and child, centering around constructing a dam and a penetrative stream trying to get around and through it. Bluey, with leaving episodes' meanings with ambiguity, is a very open show to many people, including children, teens, adults, parents, and the elderly. Many teens, adolescents, or adults call this a comfort show, which allows us to rekindle our childhood within us, but also life itself. This is why Bluey is loved by many. It gives not only a sense of comfort and healing, but also love and cherish to human life, despite its challenges. Whether you're a parent or child, you can still love the show, and through a loving family and heartwarming imaginative play, Bluey spends the world for me as I write this, and what they have done is enough.